They threw me out of my own home with a suitcase in hand and a cold smile on their face. It wasn't a shouting match, not a big dramatic scene, which somehow made it all the more devastating. It was quiet, polite, and absolutely brutal. My son, Michael, my only child, and Chloe, his wife, my daughter-in-law. They were right there, in the living room. The very room where Arthur, my beloved husband, and I had spent so many nights, planning our future, raising our family. The room we had built, brick by brick, with our sweat and all the love we had to give. And there they stood, clinking champagne glasses, celebrating. Their smiles, they weren't happy, not really. They were cold, almost smug. They were celebrating the $12 million we, our family, had won in the lottery. For them, that money meant a brand new life, a life of pure, unadulterated luxury. A life where I, their aging mother, Arthur's widow, the woman who had poured her heart and soul into that house simply. The sense of rejection was a physical blow, a tightening in my chest that took my breath away. It was a silent humiliation, the kind that digs deep and leaves a scar no one can see. The small suitcase I had packed, almost as an afterthought, sat by the door. My few belongings, suddenly so diminished, seemed to mock me. Not even one of their new, expensive cars was offered. Instead, a stranger's car, an app cab, pulled up to take me away. As it slowly drove off, I watched through the tinted window, my gaze fixed on the house, my home, the place where every single memory of my life with Arthur resided. The vibrant lights from their party, already in full swing, twinkled like a cruel joke, shrinking smaller and smaller in the distance. They truly believed I was just dead weight, a fragile old woman easily cast aside, a burden they no longer needed to carry. Their emotional coldness was a stark, painful contrast to the warmth of the home I was leaving behind. The sheer distance. An old piece of furniture, a relic that no longer matched their opulent new decor, their grand, expansive vision of the future. The quietness of it all. No arguments, no pleas, just a polite, firm expulsion, made it sting even more. They acted as if they had won everything, every single thing there was to win. But in their rush to embrace this new life, in their eagerness to forget the old, they overlooked one crucial detail, a detail my late husband, Arthur, had so wisely, so thoughtfully left behind. Arthur, he was always one step ahead. A kind man, yes, but also incredibly sharp. He had a way of anticipating things, of planning for every eventuality. He built our life with such care, such foresight. And years before he left this world, long before any lottery ticket ever crossed our path, his pen, that unassuming pen he used for his engineering drawings, had created something far more powerful than any $12 million prize. They had no idea. How could they? They were too wrapped up in their new fortune, too busy basking in the glow of their supposed victory, to see beyond the immediate glitter. They thought they were holding all the cards, that the house, the money, the future, everything belonged to them now. But what they couldn't possibly know, was that the true key to that house, the very home they now thought was theirs, wasn't in any of their pockets. It was safe. It was waiting. Tucked away in a slightly yellowed envelope, a secret, kept close, just waiting for the exact right moment to set things straight, waiting to deliver a quiet, profound justice that money alone could never buy. That knowledge, that quiet, profound justice that money alone could never buy. It was Arthur's gift, his way of looking out for me, even from beyond. My Arthur, my husband. Thinking of him now, it's like a warm wave washing over me, even through all this pain. My name is Eleanor. I'm 72 years old, and I am Arthur's widow. The great love of my life. For more than 40 years, we were a single unit, an unbreakable team. He was an engineer, always precise, always thinking. Me? I was a seamstress. I loved the feel of fabric in my hands, the quiet hum of my machine, creating something beautiful, stitch by stitch. We weren't fancy people. We didn't chase after grand fortunes or luxurious living. Instead, we chased something far more precious. We chased companionship. We chased love. Every single cent we earned, we saved. We dreamed of a home. A real home, built with our own hands, our own sweat. And we did it. Our house, the one they just threw me out of, it wasn't a mansion. It was a simple, two-story home. But it was bursting with love, overflowing with every memory, every laugh, every tear we ever shared. And in the backyard, our little slice of heaven. We planted our favorite rose bushes there, carefully, one by one. Watching them bloom, it was like watching our own life unfold, full of beauty and resilience. Our life together, it wasn't about having a lot of money. It was about something richer, something that no amount of cash could ever buy. It was about connection, about knowing you had someone, always, no matter what. That deep, comforting bond that makes every day feel full. We had this little ritual, Arthur and I, a tradition we held dear. Every Saturday morning, without fail, we'd make our way to the local lottery shop. It was a short walk, a chance to hold hands, talk about our week, and we'd play the same numbers. Always the same. They weren't random. They were our numbers. The dates of our birthdays. The day we got married. The day our only son Michael came into the world. It wasn't really about winning. Not for us. It was a habit of love. A small, shared hope, planted with care, week after week. Arthur, he'd always joke, his eyes twinkling. Eleanor, if we ever hit the jackpot, the very first thing we'll do is make sure this house, our house, is a safe haven forever. A place where our family, our love, will never ever be separated. He meant it. I know he did. Every word. Then, Arthur was gone. It felt like the world just stopped. But I kept up our ritual. Every Saturday, I'd still go to that same lottery shop. I'd still play those same numbers. It was my way of keeping him close, you see. A quiet conversation we still had, just between us. After he passed, I stayed in our home. My home. The place where Michael and Chloe, his wife, also lived. I cooked for them, always making sure there was a warm meal on the table. I tended to the garden, nurtured Arthur's rose bushes, making sure they kept blooming. I was the grandmother, the mother, always present, always there. I truly believed we were a united family, that the legacy of love, The kind of deep, abiding love that Arthur and I built would be honored by our son, that he understood, that he valued it. Little did I know, that very piece of paper with our numbers on it, that simple habit of love, that small, tender hope we shared, it would become the seed of the greatest pain of my entire life. The moment we found out we'd won, it was like a lightning bolt struck our house. $12 million. Can you even imagine? It was Michael, my son, who first saw the numbers. He was holding the ticket, the one I'd played, the one Arthur and I had always played. His eyes went wide. Then he screamed, a joyful, disbelieving sound. Chloe, his wife, my daughter-in-law, came running, and when she saw it, she just collapsed onto Michael's shoulder, sobbing. They hugged me, both of them, squeezed me tight. Tears were streaming down their faces, but they were happy tears, tears of pure shock and disbelief. "Mom, our lives are going to change forever," Michael kept repeating, his voice choked with emotion. Chloe, through her tears, just kept nodding, squeezing my hand. They told me we were all set, that everything would be different, better. And they were right. Our lives did change, but not in the way I ever imagined, not in the way Arthur and I had dreamed about. The first thing I noticed, after the initial euphoria, was the silence. It started slowly, subtly. Dinner used to be a time for talking, for catching up, for sharing our day. Michael would tell me about his work, Chloe about her plans. Now there were whispers, quiet conversations in their bedroom, after they thought I was asleep. Mysterious phone calls, taken in the garden, away from my hearing. I'd try to ask, just friendly questions. What are we going to do with the money? Michael, have you thought about anything special? And he'd always wave it off, a little too quickly. "Oh, we're seeing, Mom. Investment things. You wouldn't understand." His eyes, they'd avoid mine when he said it. Just little things at first, easy to dismiss. But then the changes started becoming bigger, more visible. One morning, there was a brand new, shiny car in the driveway. A few days later, another one. These weren't just cars, they were expensive cars, the kind you see in magazines. And Chloe, my daughter-in-law, her wardrobe began to overflow. Designer bags, shoes I'd never heard of, clothes with tags still on them. It was a parade of new things, every day. Our quiet home, the one Arthur and I built, began to feel different. Suddenly, our weekends weren't about family dinners or working in the garden anymore. They were filled with parties, people I'd never seen before, with loud laughter and clinking glasses filled every room. Strangers in my house, my home. I, Eleanor, who had always been the center of that home, cooking, caring, keeping everything together. I was gently, subtly pushed aside. "Mom, why don't you just stay in your room tonight? We don't want you to get tired." That's what Michael would say, or Chloe, a kind suggestion on the surface, but it felt like a command, like a polite eviction. I started to feel like an outsider, a guest who had overstayed her welcome, a stranger in my own story. The food I'd make, with all my love, my special roast chicken, my apple pie, it started to be ignored, dismissed. "Oh, we're having dinner out tonight, Mom, that new Italian place," or "we've ordered in." Don't worry about cooking. My efforts, my everyday acts of love, they just weren't needed anymore. And my rose bushes. Oh, my beautiful rose bushes. The ones Arthur and I planted together. The ones I tended to with such care. One afternoon, I came home to find them gone, ripped out, to make way for a new, modern swimming pool project, Chloe explained. A pool they probably wouldn't even use that often. Each gesture, each small change, it wasn't a shout or an argument. It was a small stab in my chest, a quiet, painful warning that my time there, in my own home, was slowly, steadily coming to an end. The money, all 12 million of it, it didn't have a smell, did it? You can't smell cash. But their coldness, oh, I could smell that. I could feel it, heavy in the air, in every corner of the house. The house Arthur and I had built, filled with our dreams and our love. Now it just smelled of their coldness, their indifference, and a new, unsettling emptiness. It was a smell I never thought I'd experience in my own home. And it grew stronger every day. The scent of their coldness, their indifference, it filled the house, getting stronger every day. And then it finally burst. Not with shouts, not with arguments, but in a way that was far more chilling, far more brutal. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember that clearly. The sun was shining outside, bright and misleading, as if the world itself wasn't about to turn dark for me. Michael and Chloe called me to the living room, our living room, the one where Arthur and I had shared so many dreams, so many quiet evenings. It felt like a stage, suddenly for a play I didn't want to be in. My heart, it just knew. Even before they said a word, I saw them. 2 suitcases, my suitcases, packed with my few belongings, standing by the front door, just waiting, a silent, undeniable declaration of what was coming. It felt like a punch to the gut, but I stood there, outwardly calm, watching them. Chloe, she did all the talking, really. Michael just stood next to her, a silent, almost robotic presence. She couldn't meet my gaze. Her eyes darted around the room, settling on everything but me. "Mom," she started, her voice unnaturally light, almost airy. "Michael and I, we found a new place for you, a more suitable place." She paused, looking at Michael, who gave a quick, almost imperceptible nod. "It's a lovely little apartment, much smaller, you know? Easier to care for. You won't have to worry about a big house like this anymore. A small apartment, easier to care for." Those words hung in the air, heavy and full of unsaid things. The house, my home, the one Arthur and I had built with our own hands. Every brick, every nail, every rose bush planted with love was suddenly too much for me. Too much trouble. Too much me. Then came the real knife twist. "This big house?" Chloe continued, gesturing vaguely around the room. It's for us now, Mom. For our new life. The social life the money demands, you know?" She even managed a small forced smile. The money, the lottery money. It wasn't just a win for them. It was a justification, a reason to simply erase me from the picture. There was no discussion, no room for it. No debate. How could I even argue? What words could I possibly use against such cold, calculated politeness? My son Michael, the boy I had carried, the baby I had nurtured, the little hand I had held as he took his very first steps in that very same living room. He couldn't even look at me. His eyes were glued to the floor, or the ceiling, or anywhere but mine. He just confirmed it all with a small, barely visible nod, a silent agreement to my banishment. Chloe, ever efficient, ever in control, then pulled a small set of keys from her pocket, the keys to the suitable apartment. She held them out to me, not quite touching my hand as I took them. "The car is waiting, Mom," she said, her voice still too bright, too calm. The car? Not Michael's fancy new sports car, not Chloe's imported sedan. Not even one of them offered to take me. No, it was a stranger, an app cab, a paid service. That was their level of care, their measure of respect, their ostentation, their new wealth. It was so grand that a simple act of family kindness was beneath them. I was being outsourced, discarded. I walked out of that house, my house, the one I had poured my life into, the place where I had lived every single happy memory with Arthur, every joyous celebration, the place where I had held his hand for the last time as he drifted away. And now I was being let out like a package, an inconvenience. As I passed the living room window, just before the front door closed behind me, I saw it from my own story. The door closed, not with a bang, but a soft, final click. Behind me, the muffled sounds of laughter were already starting. They didn't see any tears, not a single one, just my back walking away. And in that moment, as the door of my home sealed shut, they missed the most important detail. They didn't see the quiet, knowing silence of a woman who held a secret, a very deep, very powerful secret. The door closed behind me, not with a bang, but with a quiet, final click. I was in a car, an app cab, just like they wanted. It took me to this new place, a small, impersonal apartment, just a box, really. When I got inside, it was empty, except for the few things they'd packed for me. My suitcases, my life, reduced to 2 bags. They were still there by the door, just like in the other house. I was surrounded by boxes, by silence. But I didn't cry, not a single tear. It wasn't that I didn't feel it. Oh, the pain was deep. A sadness that felt like it would never end, a heavy weight in my chest. But there was no room for despair. No. I took a deep breath, a long, slow one. And as I breathed, I remembered Arthur. My Arthur. I closed my eyes, and his face, his kind eyes, came right to me. I thought about our last conversations. It was a while before he passed, but he was already worried. He'd seen something in Michael, a shift, a glint of something I didn't want to believe. He called it greed. "Eleanor," he'd said, his brow furrowed, "I don't like the way Michael is sometimes. He's too easily swayed by things." I'd always tried to reassure him. He's our boy Arthur. He'll be fine. But Arthur, he always saw things so clearly. I remembered the day he went to see Mr. Harrison, our family lawyer, alone. Mr. Harrison, he'd been Arthur's lawyer for years, a good, honest man. Arthur came home later that day, not saying much, but he had a plain brown envelope in his hand. He put it in my sewing box, where I kept my most precious things. "Eleanor," he said, his voice serious, "guard this. It's our safety, our real security. Promise me, only open it with Mr. Harrison, and only when the time is right." I promised him. Of course I did. I trusted Arthur with my whole heart. And now here I was, in this tiny apartment, the house, my home, taken from me. The silence in this place, it was deafening. But deep inside, I knew. I felt it with every fiber of my being. The time was coming. The right time. While I was here, trying to make sense of this new lonely life, Michael and Chloe, they were living it up. Their new, luxurious life. I didn't have to guess. I saw it all. Chloe, always so proud of their new status, posted everything on social media. Photos from trips to Europe, smiling in front of famous landmarks, pictures of shiny new imported cars, fancy dinners in exclusive restaurants, plates with tiny portions and huge prices. Each post, a new slap in the face. Each picture, a confirmation of what Arthur had feared. They didn't just kick me out of my home. They blocked me too. On my phone. When I tried to call Michael, it just went to voicemail. I heard, through a cousin, that Chloe had been telling everyone, all our relatives and friends, that I was the one who wanted to be alone, that I was getting difficult, that I wanted to isolate myself. Can you imagine? Trying to rewrite my own story, turning me into some senile old woman who chose to be forgotten. It stung. Yes, it cut deep. But my reaction, it wasn't about getting even. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about something far more powerful: patience. I took my time. Slowly, methodically, I started organizing my few documents. Bills, old papers, everything. I found Mr. Harrison's number, the old family lawyer Arthur had trusted so much. I called him. My voice, I tried to keep it steady. I told him I needed to schedule the official reading of Arthur's will. It was something Michael and Chloe, in their rush to get their hands on all that lottery money, had completely ignored. They were so blinded by the $12 million, they just assumed it was the only inheritance. They were too busy showing off, too busy posing for pictures with their new cars and fancy outfits, to worry about things like bureaucracy. Like a will, Arthur's will. Every single photo of a new car, every expensive trip they posted online, it was like another nail in the coffin of their innocence. And I just watched the time pass, quietly, waiting. The door closed behind me, not with a bang, but with a quiet final click. I was in a car, an app cab, just like they wanted. It took me to this new place, a small, impersonal apartment. Just a box, really. When I got inside, it was empty except for the few things they packed for me. My suitcases, my life, reduced to 2 bags. They were still there by the door, just like in the other house. I was surrounded by boxes, by silence. But I didn't cry, not a single tear. It wasn't that I didn't feel it. Oh, the pain was deep, a sadness that felt like it would never end, a heavy weight in my chest. But there was no room for despair. No, I took a deep breath, a long, slow one, and as I breathed, I remembered Arthur. My Arthur. I closed my eyes and his face, his kind eyes, came right to me. I thought about our last conversations. It was a while before he passed, but he was already worried. He'd seen something in Michael, a shift, a glint of something I didn't want to believe. He called it greed. Arthur, he always saw things so clearly. I remembered the day he went to see Mr. Harrison, our family lawyer, alone. Mr. Harrison, he'd been Arthur's lawyer for years, a good, honest man. Arthur came home later that day, not saying much, but he had a plain, brown envelope in his hand. He put it in my sewing box, where I kept my most precious things. "Eleanor," he said, his voice serious, "guard this. It's our safety, our real security. Promise me, only open it with Mr. Harrison, and only when the time is right." I promised him. Of course I did. I trusted Arthur with my whole heart, and now here I was, in this tiny apartment, the house, my home, taken from me. The silence in this place, it was deafening, but deep inside, I knew. I felt it with every fiber of my being. The time was coming, the right time. While I was here, trying to make sense of this new, lonely life, Michael and Chloe, they were living it up. Their new, luxurious life. I didn't have to guess. I saw it all. Chloe, always so proud of their new status, posted everything on social media. Photos from trips to Europe, smiling in front of famous landmarks. Pictures of shiny new imported cars. Fancy dinners in exclusive restaurants. Plates with tiny portions and huge prices. Each post, a new slap in the face. Each picture, a confirmation of what Arthur had feared. They didn't just kick me out of my home. They blocked me too, on my phone. When I tried to call Michael, it just went to voicemail. I heard, through a cousin, that Chloe had been telling everyone, all our relatives and friends, that I was the one who wanted to be alone, that I was getting difficult, that I wanted to isolate myself. Can you imagine? Trying to rewrite my own story, turning me into some senile old woman who chose to be forgotten. It stung. Yes, it cut deep, but my reaction, it wasn't about getting even. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about something far more powerful: patience. I took my time. Slowly, methodically, I started organizing my few documents. Bills, old papers, everything. I found Mr. Harrison's number, the old family lawyer Arthur had trusted so much. I called him. My voice, I tried to keep it steady. I told him I needed to schedule the official reading of Arthur's will. It was something Michael and Chloe, in their rush to get their hands on all that lottery money, had completely ignored. They were so blinded by the $12 million. They just assumed it was the only inheritance. They were too busy showing off, too busy posing for pictures with their new cars and fancy outfits, to worry about things like bureaucracy, like a will, Arthur's will. Every single photo of a new car, every expensive trip they posted online. It was like another nail in the coffin of their innocence. And I just watched the time pass, quietly, waiting. The days in this tiny apartment stretched out, one after another, blurring into a quiet, endless stream. Time seemed to move slower here, without the familiar rhythm of my old home, without Arthur by my side. Solitude, that was my only real companion now. It wasn't a loud, demanding presence, but a constant, heavy quiet, a silence that pressed in on me from all sides. The only human voice I really heard. My son's birthday. Even after everything, after all their coldness, I still tried. I picked up the phone, my hand trembling slightly, and dialed his number. It rang, once, twice, then went straight to voicemail. Just as I expected. I didn't leave a message. What would I say? Later that day, I saw it, of course, on Chloe's social media. A lavish, glittering party in my old house, my home. Dozens of guests, all dressed up, laughing, clinking glasses. Michael, beaming, surrounded by friends. Holding court in the very living room where Arthur and I had celebrated his first birthday, his 18th, his 30th. Not a single mention of me, not a thought. It was like I had simply vanished from their world. The true crisis, the real gut punch, came a few days later. I needed to go to a medical appointment. Nothing serious, just a routine checkup. But I needed a ride. My legs aren't what they used to be, and this new neighborhood isn't familiar. I looked around this small apartment, so empty, so devoid of life, and I realized I had no one, absolutely no one to call, no one to ask for help. It was a stark, brutal realization. I ended up calling a distant cousin, a sweet woman named Sarah, who lives a few towns over. She was surprised to hear from me. I could tell. Her voice sounded a little strained, a little embarrassed. After a bit of small talk, she finally explained, her words careful, almost apologetic. "Eleanor," she started, "Chloe, she's been telling everyone, saying that you're having some memory problems, that you're becoming difficult to deal with. She said it's best not to bother you, not to upset you." It hit me then, like a cold wave washing over me. They weren't just abandoning me. They were actively isolating me, painting me as some senile old woman just to justify their cruel actions, to make it easier for themselves, to make their story sound good to the rest of the family, to our friends. They were rewriting my life, erasing me, making me seem like the one with the problem, not them, never them. That night, it was the darkest of my entire life. I sat by the window, staring out at the city lights, blurry through the glass. I saw my reflection. A woman, my reflection, looking back at me. Fragile, forgotten, not just by strangers, but by my own son. The pain of that betrayal, it wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical. It squeezed my chest, tight, so tight that it felt hard to breathe. Like someone had wrapped their hands around my heart and wouldn't let go. For a moment, just a flicker, the hope I had been clinging to, it wavered. It felt like it might just snap. But then, my eyes drifted across the small table. There it was, that plain brown envelope, the one Arthur had given me. His safety, his promise. I reached out, my fingers tracing the faded edges of the paper, and in that moment, the memory of his love, his foresight, his quiet strength, it came flooding back. It gave me a new kind of strength, just enough to keep going, just enough to wait a little longer. In that small, quiet cubicle of an apartment, surrounded by nothing but silence, I understood something profound. The greatest poverty, it's not about not having money. Oh no, it's about not having the love of the people you care about the most. It's about being abandoned by your own flesh and blood. And that, I realized, was a kind of emptiness no amount of money could ever fill. The greatest poverty, I realized, wasn't about not having money. Oh no. It was about not having the love of the people you care about the most. It was about being abandoned by your own flesh and blood, and that, I understood, was a kind of emptiness no amount of money could ever fill. But even in that dark place, the image of Arthur, his kind smile, the memory of that plain brown envelope, it kept a small flame flickering inside me. I knew, deep down, that the time for that envelope, the time for Arthur's foresight, was finally here. The day of the will reading arrived. I woke up that morning feeling different, not excited, not scared, just a quiet determination. I picked out a simple dress, my favorite one. Arthur always liked it on me, said it brought out the color of my eyes. It wasn't fancy, certainly not like the clothes Chloe was parading around in these days, but it felt right. It felt like me. I took the bus to Mr. Harrison's office, the same office Arthur had gone to all those years ago. The city sounds, the busy streets, they all felt a little distant, like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. When I walked into the waiting room, Mr. Harrison was already there, a kind, familiar face. He offered me a cup of tea, and we sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then the door opened. Michael and Chloe walked in. Late, of course. They were laughing about something, their voices bright and loud, echoing in the quiet office. They looked triumphant, like they owned the world. Chloe was wearing one of her new designer outfits, and Michael had that same smug, self-satisfied look I'd seen in all her social media photos. They barely glanced at me, just a quick, cold, "Oh, hi, Mom," from Michael, before they settled into the chairs opposite Mr. Harrison's desk. Impatient, clearly wanting to get this whole formality over with. They exchanged a quick, knowing look, a little smirk, as if to say, "Let's just get this old-fashioned nonsense done." Mr. Harrison, a man of quiet dignity, cleared his throat and began to read. He spoke about Arthur's life, his wishes. Then he got to the part about the assets. He made it very clear, very precisely, that the lottery prize, the $12 million, because it was acquired after their marriage and legally in Michael's name, rightfully belonged to him. My son and my daughter-in-law, they exchanged another look, a wider, more victorious smile this time. Their eyes met, full of that cold, hard triumph I had come to dread. They thought that was it. That was the whole story. The big prize, the only inheritance. But Mr. Harrison, he paused. He took a sip of water, then cleared his throat again, a little louder this time. He looked directly at Michael and Chloe, then at me. And then he read the last clause, the one Arthur had insisted on writing himself, the one he had made sure was properly registered. I leave, in its entirety, the family property, the house I built with my beloved wife, Eleanor, exclusively to her. This is her home, her safe haven, and from it, no one shall ever remove her. The silence that fell in that room was heavy, so heavy it felt like it could crush you. Michael's triumphant smile slowly, agonizingly faded. Chloe's jaw, it just dropped. They looked at each other, then at Mr. Harrison, then back at me. Their faces just shock, pure, unadulterated shock. They seemed to deflate right before my eyes. Mr. Harrison, his voice calm, continued. He explained the legal implications, making sure every word sank in. He said they were, in fact, living in a property that did not belong to them, and that I, as the sole and rightful owner, was legally entitled to give them a notice. 30 days. 30 days to vacate the premises. My home, the house of their ostentation, the very stage of my recent humiliation. It was mine, only mine. In that moment, Arthur's will, that simple piece of paper, didn't just give me back a house. It gave me back something far more precious. It gave me back the dignity that my own son, the boy I loved more than life itself, had so cruelly tried to steal. In that moment, Arthur's will, that simple piece of paper, didn't just give me back a house. It gave me back something far more precious. It gave me back the dignity that my own son, the boy I loved more than life itself, had so cruelly tried to steal. And so I went back to my house. My home. The door, the one that had closed on me so silently, just weeks before, it opened again. Stepping inside, it was like walking into a stranger's house. The air was thick with the scent of Chloe's expensive perfume, a cloying sweetness that felt out of place. Her extravagant decorations, all crystal and gold, still cluttered the shelves and walls. It wasn't the home Arthur and I had built anymore. It was a stage for their new, showy life. The days that followed were a blur of activity. I watched, quietly, as a parade of moving trucks pulled up to the curb. They systematically emptied the house. Out went the luxurious furniture they'd bought with the lottery money. The sleek, sporty cars from the garage. The grand, oversized artwork that had replaced our simple family photos. Every piece of that false life they had constructed, it was carried away, piece by piece. As each truck drove off, a little more of that heavy, stifling atmosphere lifted. But I didn't feel a rush of joy, not a triumphant feeling of vengeance. No, what I felt was much simpler, much deeper than that. Just a profound sense of relief, a quiet, peaceful ease, like finally being able to breathe again after holding your breath for too long. My space, it was mine again. A kind neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, heard what happened and offered to help me. She brought over some cleaning supplies, and together we swept away the lingering dust. The foreign scents, the last traces of their presence. It was therapeutic, almost like washing away the pain itself. Then I brought my few things from that tiny, impersonal apartment. My favorite armchair, Arthur's old pipe stand, my box of phonographs, my sewing machine. Small things, yes, but each one felt like a piece of my soul returning home. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was real. My life, it didn't magically transform into a fairy tale. That's not how life works, is it? The $12 million, it stayed with them. And honestly, I didn't fight for it. I didn't even want to. What was the point? My true wealth, I realized, wasn't measured in bank accounts or flashy cars. It was in the very walls of this house, in every creak of the floorboards, in the way the sunlight fell through the kitchen window in the morning. It was in the memories I shared with Arthur, in every corner of this place we built together. It was in the scent of the new rose bushes I carefully planted in the garden, right where Arthur's original ones had been, right where Chloe had so carelessly ripped them out. I wanted to see them bloom again, a symbol of new life, of enduring beauty. I reactivated my old sewing machine. The hum of it, a familiar, comforting sound, filled the quiet house. I started doing little mending jobs for the neighbors. Simple things, repairing a torn hem, replacing a button. It wasn't really for the money, though a little extra always helps. It was more about having something to do, something to occupy my hands and my mind. It was about feeling useful, connected to the world in a small, gentle way. Michael, my son, he never reached out. Not once. I learned through some distant relatives that he and Chloe had moved to another city, far away. They were living that life of luxury they had so desperately wanted, with their expensive cars and their endless parties. The pain of losing a son, that's a special kind of ache. It's a wound that I know will never completely disappear, but I'm learning to live with it now. It's like a dull ache that's always there, but it doesn't consume me anymore. It's a part of my story, a scar that reminds me of what was. Today, my house feels like a home again. It's not full of strangers and loud music. It's full of laughter, yes, but it's the honest, warm laughter of good friends. My amigas, they often come by for a cup of coffee and a chat. The cheerful sounds of my neighbors' children playing in the street drift in through the open window. And there's always the gentle, rhythmic hum of my sewing machine, a constant, comforting presence. I've found a different kind of life now, a quiet peace in the simplicity of it all, a clean soul, as Arthur would say. The money, all $12 million that went to them. But the peace, the memories, and my home, my precious home that the will made sure stayed with me. I'm sitting out here on my porch now, the sun warm on my face. My new rose bushes are reaching up, getting stronger every day, just like I am. I look at my little garden, the one Arthur and I dreamed of, and I think about everything that happened. All of it. The good, the bad, the heartbreaking. It's strange, isn't it? How one moment, one single piece of paper, can turn a whole life upside down and then write it again? That lottery money, it didn't just change Michael and Chloe. It didn't just change our circumstances. It revealed things. It peeled back layers, you see, and showed me what was already hidden deep in their hearts. Arthur, my wise Arthur, He saw it coming. He saw that flicker of greed in Michael, even when he was just a boy. I didn't want to believe it then. I kept telling myself, no, he's our son. He has a good heart. But the money, that $12 million, it poured gasoline on that flicker. It didn't create their true nature. It just exposed it for all to see. It made me realize how quickly people can change their minds about your worth, especially when money enters the picture. One minute, I was a mother, a grandmother, a steady presence in their home. The next, I was just a burden, an old woman in the way of their new, glamorous life. They didn't see me anymore. Eleanor, the woman who loved them, the woman who built that home. They saw an inconvenience, a problem that could be solved by moving me to a smaller apartment and out of their lives. That's a bitter pill to swallow, let me tell you. To feel like your very existence is an obstacle to someone else's happiness. But through all that pain, all that injustice, I learned something so important, something Arthur always knew, even when I sometimes forgot. Sometimes the truest, most profound justice doesn't come with shouting or revenge. It doesn't need fanfare or noise. It comes with a quiet, calm strength. The strength to simply reclaim what is rightfully yours. My home, yes, that was a big part of it. But more than that, it was my peace, my dignity. They tried to strip that away from me. They tried to make me feel old and useless, a burden to be discarded. They even tried to tell everyone I was losing my memory, that I wanted to be alone. But I knew my own truth. And Arthur, through his foresight, through that will, he made sure my truth couldn't be silenced. He gave me back my voice, in a way. He reminded me that my value, the value of any human being, doesn't depend on how much money you have or how convenient you are for someone else's plans. It's inherent. It's simply there, especially as we get older, when society sometimes forgets to see us, forgets to value our experience, our wisdom, our very presence. I didn't want to fight with them. I didn't want to argue. My justice wasn't about making them suffer, not really. It was about finding my own peace again. It was about standing firm in who I am, in what Arthur and I built, and saying, no, you don't get to erase me. It was about knowing that some things are worth more than any amount of money. The love we shared, the memories in these walls, the simple comfort of being in my own space. These are treasures that can never be bought or sold. It's been a long road, a painful road. Losing a son, even if he walked away himself, is a wound that never fully heals. But the sun still rises, the roses still bloom, and I'm here, in my home, with my memories and my quiet strength. I learned that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to reclaim your light, to stand tall, not for vengeance, but for yourself. And you, have you ever felt that your value to someone you love changed when money appeared in the story? Maybe you have too. Maybe you know that feeling, that sting. It's a strange thing, this life, isn't it? How quickly the world can shift, how easily some people can forget what really matters, all because of a number on a piece of paper. But I realized something important through all of it. My worth, my dignity, my place in this world, it wasn't for them to take away. it wasn't tied to their approval, or their money, or their version of happiness. Arthur made sure of that. He gave me back my voice, my home, my true self, even from beyond. My days now are quiet, full of small comforts. The hum of my sewing machine, a familiar song in the mornings, the smell of freshly brewed tea wafting through the kitchen, the way the sunlight catches the leaves on my rose bushes, making them glow a soft green. It's not a grand life, not by Michael and Chloe's standards, but it's a life filled with meaning, with purpose, and with a peace that money alone could never buy. The pain of losing my son, it's still there, a soft echo, like a shadow at the edge of my vision. It's a wound that I've learned to carry, like a cherished, if sorrowful memory. But it doesn't define me anymore. It doesn't consume me. I've found a different kind of strength, a quiet resilience I didn't know I had. It's the strength of someone who has weathered a storm and found her way back to shore. I spend a lot of time out here on the porch, just watching the world go by. My garden, it's thriving again. New rose bushes, strong and vibrant, blooming with such beautiful colors. They're a testament, I think, to life's ability to find its way, even after being uprooted. My little home, it's a sanctuary again. It's filled with the laughter of my friends, the clinking of teacups, the stories we share. It's filled with kindness, with simple joys, with everything that makes a house a home. It's clean, inside and out, a clean soul, just like Arthur used to say. And you know, if my story, these quiet moments I've shared with you, if they've touched you or made you think, then I hope we can keep this connection. Because sometimes, without even knowing it, things can change online. Channels you follow, people you feel connected to, can disappear from your feed. So, if you want to keep hearing these real stories, these glimpses into life, just take a moment, a tiny moment, to check for me. Make sure you're still subscribed, and maybe even tap that little bell so we don't lose touch, so my voice and these stories can still reach you. It's a simple thing, really, but in a world that can often feel so disconnected, these small connections, they mean everything. They truly do.